Luna glared at Stan. Listen, you're good and we've got your back, but there's absolutely no way we can take on a dragon by ourselves. Stan nodded absently, as if deep in thought. Yeah, I suppose you're right. Zephyr and Freya both visibly relaxed, but then Stan continued. We'll need one more person. They're an expert in the field. All three of his companions deflated slightly, but Zephyr leaned over to Luna and Freya. Hey, if this guy's an expert at hunting dragons, he'll know right away we're not up to the task, and maybe Stan will believe him. They both nodded and resolved to see this expert dragon hunter. But rather than speak with any of the senior guild members in the guild hall, Stan led them out into the streets, then up the road to the area most village people called the Finance District. It was where only the wealthiest villagers lived, and, of course, where the bank was located. Whoever this adventurer was, they must have been very successful to have made it here. But try as she might, Luna could not think of any high-ranked adventurers that fit the description. However, Stan surprised them again when, instead of marching up to one of the mansions, he walked into the bank. Maybe one of the guards was a retired adventurer. It would make sense. You'd want the best of the best protecting a place like that. And Stan did indeed walk up to one of the guards, but after speaking to him for a moment, the guard only pointed the way to an office. All four adventurers squeezed into the office. It wouldn't have been so bad, but even squeezed onto a chair meant for a person half his size, Stan took up the space of two people, and his sword a third, resulting in a rather bunched-up group of questionable-looking people sitting across the desk of a severe-looking woman in a rather smart suit, who peered at them over the rim of her glasses. When she spoke, her voice made clear her disdain. If you're looking to deposit whatever valuables you've acquired in your latest adventure. The word adventure was spoken with something between a sneer and a laugh. The people at the front desk will be more than capable of assisting you. Luna bristled at the callous condescension, but Stan only grinned. No, it's nothing like that, ma'am. We're going after this little troublemaker and thought we needed an expert on the subject. As he spoke, Stan slammed down the wanted poster from the guild. Sitting up a little straighter, the woman whose office the party was offending suddenly looked interested. Or at least, that's what Luna interpreted the slight upraising of her eyebrow to indicate. Even her tone sounded a little less icy. Yes, I see what you mean. This is a matter that will take some considerable expertise, far beyond that of the average adventuring group. Very well, I'm in. Meet me at the south gate at precisely 9 o'clock in the morning. I'll see to my own supplies. Luna frowned. Why 9? Shouldn't we leave earlier in the day? The severe woman gave Luna a look that chilled the room several degrees. My dear, I am an employee of the Crown. My work hours are from 9 till 5. If you would like me to work outside my scheduled hours, you would have to pay my overtime rate. And looking at you... She looked Luna up and down, as if examining a piece of meat for dinner. You can't afford my rate. Luna was about to say something back, but Stan just placed one of his oversized hands on Luna's shoulder to calm her, while he spoke with the woman. 9 will be fine, Miss Lister. We'll see you then. With that, he stood up to walk out of the office, and not wanting to get caught between Stan and the floor, everyone else followed suit. When they were outside, Luna frowned at Stan. That woman is insufferable. Do we really need this, Lister? She hardly seems like she'd be of any help against a lone goblin, let alone a dragon. Stan just shook his head. Trust me, she's exactly who we need in there. I've faced my share of dangerous people in my time, but that woman is by far the scariest person I've ever met. When the time comes, you'll see what I mean. As she walked up to the gate, Luna was surprised to see not only Stan, Freya, Zephyr and Miss Lissa, but also what appeared to be a half-dozen thugs and mercenaries, all decked out and ready for travel. Is this why Stan wanted Miss Lister? Because she was able to recruit a small army on short notice? Luna just hoped she wouldn't have to split the reward that many times, although a split reward was worth a lot more than dying, so maybe it was worth it. Miss Lister was frowning. You're 3 minutes late. We can't afford any further delays or we'll fall behind at this rate. Stan just smiled. Don't you worry now, Miss Lister. We'll get there on time. Just leave it to old Stan here. Miss Lister gave Stan an appraising look. The living man-mountain of muscle named Stan was hard for anyone to ignore, and evidently Miss Lister was satisfied with what she saw, because her tone lost some of its iciness again. Very well. Lead on, Mr. Stanley. As the adventurers took the lead, Luna leaned over to Stan. Well, not so much leaned over as looked up, but it had a similar effect. You didn't tell me your name is Stanley. Stan shook his head. It's not. My name is just Stan, but that woman scares me too much to correct her. True to his word, Stan made sure they were making good time by carrying more than his fair share. Luna was happy to notice they were less than half a day's walk from the mountain, and the sun was still high in the sky. They'd be able to make the trip in a single day, camp out near the cave, then approach at the light of dawn, catching the dragon by surprise. That was when Miss Lister called a halt. All right, this will do. Get camp set up and we'll call it a night. Luna was more than a little surprised. But wait, there's still plenty of sunlight. Why stop here? Are you afraid of the dragon finding us in the middle of the night or something? Miss Lister looked annoyed, but answered the question all the same. We're stopping because it's after 5 in the evening. As I told you before, my working hours are from 9 till 5. Luna couldn't believe her ears. This woman, who was supposedly some expert dragon hunter, only worked between the hours of 9 and 5? That was it. This woman was not worth her attitude or the trouble she created. Luna was preparing a fireball spell that would wipe the annoying woman from the face of the planet, but Stan put a hand on her shoulder. It's all right. You and your men can rest here. Us adventurers will go ahead and get some scouting done. Maybe clear out the dragon's den. Miss Lister looked their way before making a shooing motion. Go about your business, then. We'll set out at 9 in the morning and meet you there. Stan simply nodded. That'll be great. As they walked away, Luna was not pleased. Stan, why'd you put up with that woman? She and her men have contributed nothing. You keep saying she'll earn her keep, but all she does is judge us and complain. You don't deserve that. You're better than that. We're all better than that. Stan smiled down at the mage, who actually had bits of fire floating in the air around her from her suppressed rage. Ah, thank you, Luna. It means a lot that you're looking out for little old me. But don't worry. Even if she's a mite difficult to deal with, everyone has their time and place. Just trust your friend Stan. She'll be worth it in the end. Luna was evidently not the only one having a bad day. Zephyr looked equally distraught. The mage couldn't help but ask, What's got you making such a sour face? The rogue scowled as he spoke. Lisa and all her men had chains attached to their gold pouches. I couldn't lift a single one. Freya couldn't help but cover her face after what she'd just heard. Saints preserve me. I did not hear that. Luna wasn't pleased, as they were cresting the final cliff the next day. Where's your mighty dragon slayer, Stan? I bet she's barely gotten started by now. Stan shrugged. It's all right. We needed to clear out the den anyway. Dragons like this probably have all sorts of traps and guards. Miss Lizer won't be important until we're past all that. Luna had no idea how the big man could be so cheerful, marching into the den of a dragon, but he didn't seem at all fazed. She'd always known she'd probably die as an adventurer, and at least it would be fighting against a dragon, and not some two-bit thug. But still, it was a little early to face the end like this. At the mouth of the cave was a giant iron door. Stan gave it a good look and was about to kick it down when Zephyr shouted at him, "Stop!" Stan looked like he was thinking about kicking anyway, but backed up as the rogue approached the door. "Listen, this is the most clumsily obvious double lantern trap I've seen, but if you just try to kick the door in, it'll go off anyway. Give me just a minute." He walked over to a separate part of the fence that didn't look like anything in particular, then fiddled with a hidden mechanism using a handful of tools no one got a great look at. And voila! With a flourish and a bow, the secret door swung inward. As they walked through the gloom, Luna lit a flame which she raised over everyone's head. Soon enough, the sounds of scraping and scrabbling all around them made it clear they weren't alone. Then, out of the gloom, charged a small army of kobolds. On the off chance Stan would try to stop and negotiate with them, Luna had already prepped a spell. She made a gesture, and the fireball over their heads leapt forward before exploding in a conflagration that sent the kobolds flying. The few survivors quickly disappeared into the gloom as suddenly as they'd appeared, and the group continued. They travelled this way in the dark for a while, with Zephyr occasionally leading them this way or that to avoid traps he swore were there, and deactivating the few they couldn't simply avoid when they came to another door. The door looked like it was made out of human bone, with a skull sitting in the middle of the door. As they approached, his eyes lit up, literally, and it spoke. "If you wish to pass me, you must answer my riddles free, but if you answer wrong, is doom for thee." The four of them looked back and forth between each other, and Freya answered on their behalf. "Ask your riddles, then." The skull somehow grinned. "I have a neck but no head. What am I?" Luna knew the answer to this one. A bottle. One of the skull's eyes went dark, and it spoke again. "I am most useful when broken." Stan answered this one. An egg. The second eye went dark, and the skull spoke again. "I speak without a mouth and hear without ears. I am invisible, but you can call for me. What am I?" At that one, everyone looked back and forth between themselves. No one seemed to know the answer, but then Freya stepped forward. Luna grinned. Of course, the ex-priest would know. She spent all her time with her nose in books. Without hesitation, Freya lifted her hand and shouted, "Turn undead!" With a suddenly blinding light, the door crumbled and fell to the ground, leaving their path open. Stan, who was closest, was rubbing his eyes. "That was bright. And did you have to be that loud? I could hear the echo from the back of the cave." After overcoming several more hazards and traps, including a lich Stan talked into retirement, a lava pit, and even a trap that looked like a fairy trapped in a room, but turned out to be a faceless stalker using a mirror, the group finally made it into the treasure room. Before them sat literal mounts of gold and jewels. Zephyr ran forward, only to have his shirt snagged by Stan, who pulled him back just in time to avoid a jet of flame that was launched their way. A low, deep chuckle reverberated through the room, as a red dragon the size of a small house crested the top of one of his piles of gold. "Who dares invade my domain?" Stan stepped forward. "Now listen here, dragon. You've been causing a right mess in the kingdom as of late. There'll be no more preying on the weak and stealing the gold of hard-working townsfolk under my watch. You better return that gold to its rightful owners, or else." The dragon laughed. You've got it all wrong, little man. I'm helping the kingdom. Why, since I started raiding your villages, the number of guards manning the walls has increased tenfold. I'm creating jobs. I only eat the slowest and weakest of the cattle, so I'm strengthening the herds. And I'll have you know I even filed taxes on the loot I got last year. For once, Stanley wasn't smiling. Now, I might just be an old country boy, but my mama didn't raise no fool. Those arguments are disingenuous, and you know it. What good are more jobs when you take away the gold they're paid with? And those cattle you eat were the next up to be butchered. With the decrease in herd size across the kingdom, the price of beef has skyrocketed, making more people go hungry. As for your taxes, the way I heard it, you submitted that your household had a net loss last year, and filed for subsidies to make up for the loss. You're just a good-for-nothing lazy-about living off the hard work of us townsfolk, and we ain't going to sit back and let you do it anymore. The dragon reared up and laughed. And just what will you do about it, little man? Stan shook his head, sadly. You know, I was hoping it wouldn't come to this. No one deserves to go through what you're about to endure. Just remember, you brought this on yourself. The dragon started laughing again. Luna was so terrified that she was about to die, she almost didn't see Cypher pocket several handfuls of gold and jewels. Then, suddenly, the dragon's laughter cut off, and he stepped behind them with terror clear on his face. Luna turned around to see what he was looking at, and there stood Miss Lister, looking more than a little put out. Just as I expected. You put on your 1040D forms that you lost much of your hoard to Shell Company's losses, but I don't see any of the supposed seashells you brought. All I see are piles of gold. She leaned closer to one pile. With our kingdom seal. This also contradicts Form 1099D, in which you claimed all your gold came from out-of-kingdom raids. Furthermore, I can plainly see your application for Form 9465D to make payments for past years in installments, because you lacked the ability to pay at the time of filing, was a lie. This calls for an immediate audit. Suddenly, Miss Lister pulled out a wand powerful enough that Luna could feel the magic radiating all the way over where she stood, and with a motion, all the piles of gold became covered in an impenetrable crystalline surface. She then glared at the dragon. Consider your assets frozen until the conclusion of this audit. Then, turning to Stan, Miss Lister actually smiled. You did a surprisingly effective job. Consider the gold your rogue friend lifted payment for a job well done. I know who to contact if I ever need a competent guide again. You are dismissed. Stan nodded politely. Thank you, ma'am. Then, with a pitying look directed at the now terrified dragon, he turned and walked out of the cavern, followed closely by his friends.